Romans chapter 10, verse 1 in this King James translation of this passage of Scripture says unto us, brethren, my heart's desire and prayer to God for Israel is that they may be saved. Thus is the reading of the Word of God. It is a lamp unto our feet, a light unto our pathway. It is this truth. It is the truth that makes us free. Just for a few moments, I want to tag the subject to this particular text on today, a protest plea. A protest plea. Thank you so much. Thank you for those who serve in the capacity of worshipers, and thank you for those who are standing for the reading of the Word of God. A protest plea. You have once again seen all over America and even now all over the world where there are many individuals now who have joined in the great protest against the life of Brother George Floyd. It stemmed from that very incident when Mr. George Floyd lost his life at the hands of those who have made an oath to protect and to serve. But from that incident that happened to George Floyd, many people watched it on whatever media tool that was available to see how one can lose his life at the hands of those who once again had no compassion for life. And there have been many protests that have started, and there have been protests that moved from being protests to being riots, and then to experience looting and even vandalism, and yet burning down buildings and destroying property in order to once again get their point across. The point is that we are tired of the injustice that has been placed before us, not only just in this year 2020, but in the previous years, that have led to a predominantly group of African Americans to lose their life at the very hands of those who are said was given an oath to protect us and to keep us out of harm's way. There are many who yet have their opinions of what the protest should be about, and there are others who have come to the conclusion that the greatest protest is a peaceful protest where we can be effective in what we are trying to achieve in our protest. And I guarantee you, you can talk to any different individual on any different day, and you're going to come up with all kind of different ideas of yet what we should be doing and what we should not be doing. But my brothers and sisters, there is a great awakening that should happen, that we as the believers, those who yet trust in God, will allow us to come to know the full knowledge of how to be effective in our protest. Here today we find that Paul, who's yet experiencing those whom yet have come to share in spreading a message of hope, spreading them a message that they will be able to overcome all that they've experienced and to have a brand new life. And he yet in his protest to them is that they will not receive what he is actually saying is the way. My brothers and sisters, that's important for us to understand, because there is a message that is yet going forth. That yet, once again, we're trying to show the world that we are unified and we're coming together for this one coming goal of fighting the injustice which is in our society. But the greatest question that many would have is that how can we become effective in our protest? How can we come to a conclusion that after we have finished protesting, what would be the end results of the protest?
Yeah.
We can cry all day about the injustice, and when we stop crying, what would justice do for us then? What would happen when those who will not actually listen to us, who will not, once again, give us an opportunity to voice our opinion, to give us the insight on what we are calling and what we're pleading for, they will yet simply come to deaf ears. And so it is that I want you to be encouraged today that this is not an anti-protest message, but it is a message that we need to make sure we understand that God is speaking to us and showing us how to be actually effective in our protest.
Yeah.
Paul gives us a great example today because Paul has been preaching to these Jews, and these Jews have been refusing to listen to what Paul had to say. Paul himself, a Jew, is sharing a message of hope to these group of individuals who are listening to what he's saying, but yet being those who yet are stiff-necked and rejecting every word that Paul is saying. That is what's happening in America, my brothers and sisters. They have been listening. This is not the first time that a protest has broken out all over America. You can remember a few years ago what happened in Ferguson. The same thing, that people were losing their lives, and yet we would go to the streets and we would protest and we would burn down buildings and we would destroy property. But we found that that was not the answer to the problem.
Yeah.
Because here we are just a few years later doing the same thing, speaking the same words. Black lives matter. My brothers and sisters, no one who yet experiences injustice in this world would want their children and their grandchildren to experience the same thing. And if there's going to be a change, if there is going to be an answer to the call of injustice, Paul says to us, can I help you today?
Come on now.
Hear my protest plea. I've been crying out to some people. I've been crying out to a nation of individuals who have walked away and turned their back upon their God. He says to them, as he said to us today, if there's going to be an effective change in this moment that we're in right now, my brothers and sisters, the church has to come to the forefront and lead out in this time of protest. But let me show you how the church protests, because it's much different than how the world protests. It becomes greater and effective because, once again, the church is relying upon someone greater than themselves. The church is not relying on just its voice. It's relying upon the one who gives us the voice. Paul says, can I help you just for a few moments? As he comes and he continues to plead with them, turn your life to Christ. Come back to him. Return to the one who loves you the best. Come to experience the love of this wonderful God who loves you beyond measure. Come to the very one who does not look at you as Jew or Gentile. He just looks at you as his child. Come back to him and let me show you my protest, please. Paul says this. He says, look, he says, brother, he says, my heart desire and my prayer to God for Israel is that they might be saved. My brothers and sisters, it shows us this idea that when we plead and we give our voice in a moment of protest, if there's going to be any change, any effective change, if there's going to be any change in the situation and circumstances that we are going to face in this nation in the days and in the months and the years to come, the text says to us, first and foremost, Paul says that one must have compassion. One must have this compassion that Jesus had himself. Because Paul says that in the first plea, brethren, he says, my heart desire. This idea of this heart's desire, he says, this is my affection for the situation at hand. I see the situation, but he said, what my heart desires most is that I can see the effects that it's having on those who reject God, but he says, I still have some compassion. He says his heart drives his plea because it begins with the ideal that all issues begin in the heart. That's what we deal with. They deal with. There are individuals who on the front line early this morning because of how their heart feels about the situation. But my brothers and sisters, our heart governs our mind, and our heart begins to govern how we feel about things. But my brothers and sisters, Paul said, look here, you need to have some compassion. Huh? Yeah. That's what folks said the other day. And when they said for the injustice, but the flawed experience, he said, I'm having compassion for the flawed life. But my brothers and sisters, what we need to understand is that the very ones who we protested to, we also got to have the same compassion. We also have to have the same heart's desire. We also have to be stirred up, not only with our minds, but with our spirits. Because for the believer, our spirit governs our heart. And as our spirit governs our hearts begin to govern our minds. Because we won't see it as many will see it as a black and white situation. We'll see it as a all human mankind situation. That every one of us come to know, even if we are dark-skinned, chocolate, whatever color you want to call us, that there is an instant that when people come and yet rise up against us, when people reject us, Paul says, you still must have compassion. He says, this harsh desire, after I've been pleading with you over and over again, you stiff-necked Jews, I've been pleading this cause of coming over on the Lord's side. I've been trying to convince you that there is no other way. I've been trying to let you know the story that I've been telling you. It's a true story. It's a true method. It's yet how I'm standing here today and how he has delivered me out of the hands of my own enemies and how he has delivered me through toils and snares. How he's even delivered me from those who yet went out and tried to persecute me. Paul says, I'm standing here today, yet still with compassion. I still have this heart's desire. Paul says, I didn't give it up. Just like I don't want you to give up on what we call the American dream. I don't want you to give up on this ideal that we all can live in peace. I don't want you to give up on the ideal that justice will reign on the streets of the United States of America. It might not look like you want it to look, but yet that's still an idea that there is still hope. Because Paul shows us that we must have this compassion. Paul says, I still have enough compassion to let you know that my heart desire is that there will be a better opportunity.
Set your pace, man. Set your pace.
My hope and my desire is that we all can live in peace. My hope and desire is that we all can have a wonderful relationship. My hope and desire is that you won't look at me any different than you look at someone else. Paul says that one must have this life of compassion. But then after we are experiencing the movement of our hearts and those desires, those things that we seek out, he says that, and my prayer to God. He says not only must one have compassion, but he also says one must be willing to communicate. Because he says, it is my petition unto God. You see, he goes to the right source in order to achieve an effective change. Paul says, I can't just rely upon me, but he says I got to rely upon the one who holds all power in his hand. He says if I want them to hear what I have to say, even with my compassion that I have, he says I still got to communicate to the one that makes all the difference. He says, I know you're going to stand before him and you're going to plead that they will come back to him, but he says I got to go and communicate to him in order to be effective in my message. He says to us that if we're going to go on the streets and protest and we're going to tell the world that our lives really matter, that we got to make sure that we go and communicate to the right source. Because I guarantee you, my brothers and sisters, there will not be a change that will be effective enough until we change the hearts and the minds of the people we're protesting against. We can protest all day long, but if they don't change their hearts and their minds, you won't feel no effect of no protest. I just want to let you know today that you're standing together, unified in our protest, but we need to make sure we start navigating our protest in the right direction. We keep on talking about justice, and we keep on talking about injustice, and we keep on talking about trying to live in peace. We keep on talking about our lives matter. But if you are talking to a brick wall and they won't change, ain't nothing gonna happen when you protest, because you are not protesting in the right direction. You need to make sure you not only have this compassion, but you got to make sure you start communicating, because the only way that's going to be an effective change, you got to go to the source of the change. And if you don't go to the source of the change, we just going to be protesting from now till we go home, because there will be no effective change until we call upon the name of the one who can make the change happen. I guarantee you, my brothers and sisters, I'm not trying to downplay the protest, but what I'm trying to do is lift up a protest, because the church got to stand up and stop watching people who have no direction stand on street corners thinking that they're going to be effective, stand with their signs up thinking that they're going to make a change, standing on every corner thinking that that's going to make a difference. But I beg the difference, if you don't call upon the name of God, there will be no change. You can protest all you want, but if you don't call that name, you're not going to experience a change that you're looking for, because you can protest as Paul was pleading. He said, come to him who can make all the difference, and they put their fingers in their ears. Come to him who came to give his life for you, and they stuck their fingers in their ears. Come to him who gave his life for you, and they stuck their fingers in their ears. But Paul said, I still got enough compassion. Paul says, I want to go and communicate, because Paul says, at the end of the hour, he said, here is my objective, and we got an objective. We're trying to live in the land of peace, and Paul says, let me tell you why my heart's desire. Let me tell you why I'm praying to God that there will be an effective change. Because Paul says, I want them to experience the salvation. I want them to experience a changed life. I want them to experience a changed heart. I want them to experience a changed mind. And so if we're going to be effective in our protest, you have to have the compassion to look at one who you're looking across to. And then you got to start praying and calling upon the name of Jesus. And when you start praying and calling upon the name of Jesus, I don't want them to hear me. I don't want them to hear my story. But what I do want them to know is that salvation is available to you. And if you receive it, God can change your life around. If you receive it, God can change your heart. If you receive it, God can change your mind. And stand before those, and my plea is that you will come on the Lord's side. I'm not trying to get them on my side, but I'm trying to get them on the Lord's side. And if they get on the Lord's side, we don't have to worry. We will live in peace. If they get them on the Lord's side, you don't have to worry. They won't beat us down. If you get them on the Lord's side, you don't have to worry. They won't kill us in the street. If you get them on the Lord's side, you don't have to worry mistreating you. If you get on the Lord's side, you don't have to worry about protesting no more. So what you'll do is you'll start praising him and start calling him and start lifting up your hands, because there is a plea in my protest that all men will experience the salvation. There won't be an effective change until we save them. There will not be an effective change until we call upon the name of the one who can make all the difference. Call his name. Don't be afraid. We call him George Floyd's name, but that's all right. That's not effective. We call him Mr. Abraham's name, but that's all right. That's not effective. We call him Trayvon's name, but that's all right. That's not effective. But if you call on the name of Jesus, I guarantee you, the Bible says that demons tremble at the name of Jesus. Demons have to bow down at the name of Jesus. And so when you get on your front line, all you have to do is lift him up. Oh, lift him up. Oh, lift him up. And I guarantee you'll start seeing a difference. If you call his name, I guarantee you'll see a difference. If you lift him up, I guarantee you'll see a difference. I need you to understand how to be effective in our protest. Call his name. Put his name in the forefront. Put his name in the forefront. Here's what I've seen. I've seen all these protests. I've seen Black Lives Matter. I've seen All Lives Matter. I've seen injustice must stop in here. I've seen folks proclaim that they are standing up for righteousness. I've seen folks proclaim that they're standing up in protest. But I didn't see one sign that had the name of Jesus. I didn't see one sign that said he is Lord. I didn't see one sign that he can make all the difference. I didn't see one sign that had Yeshua's name on it. I didn't see one sign that had Jehovah's name on it. And so if we're going to be effective, we got to start holding up our signs and call his name. His name. Oh, his name. His name. Just in case you don't know it, let me call him for you. Jesus in the morning. Jesus in the noonday. Jesus in the afternoon. Jesus in the noonday. Jesus in the evening. Jesus in the midnight hour. Call him. See what happens. Call him. And see how it makes a difference. Call him. And see how far your protest goes. Call him. And he will. Oh, he will. He will. I know he will. He died on Friday, buried for 3 days. But he got up. Yes, he did. He got up. And when he got up with all power. You're going to be effective in your protest. If you want to make a real change in your protest, if you really want justice in your community, you got to come to know who Christ Jesus is. And then once you call on him and allow him to save you, then you go back on the forefront and tell him that Jesus is the answer. Jesus can make all the difference. Could you imagine that all these protests that we've had over this past few weeks, if they would have been an evangelistic breakout, if those folks who were on the forefront knew anything about Jesus, could you imagine what effect it could have had on the world? If they just had an inkling of an idea of who Jesus was, if they had any Jesus in them, they would come to know that there is no power in humans, but there is power. Power in his name. That's power in his name. So I want you to protest, but I want your plea to have compassion. I want you to communicate to the right source, but I want you to get your objective right. I don't mind standing with you. I don't mind being out there on the forefront. I don't have a problem holding up my sign. But one thing, when I hold up my sign, I want you to know that Jesus